Dear viewers, I continue to warmly welcome you from Moscow to Alexander von Bismarck in Dialogue. Today I have a German-speaking person with me who comes from Switzerland. Of course, I have always listened to Roger Köppel over and over again. He's someone who formulates things really well and is very open. He also runs media that say what they think and not just what they're supposed to say. And I am particularly happy to be live today, especially in front of everything. You can see the Red Square and the Kremlin in the background, and you can see people walking. So it's not fake. And that's why I'm happy that we are here today in the studio. And I warmly welcome Peter Hanseler from Switzerland.
Grüezi. Hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you for the invitation.
I can't say it very well. Grüezi.
Well, you are not Swiss.
I heard that you have been in Russia for a very, very long time. You have a special connection to Russia, and you also write a lot and comment on many things. I have read one or two things. You can say that much better. You also have your own website, a forum where you can see and read all of that.
Yes, we run the forum Geopolitica. The most special thing about it is that we publish in 4 languages. That means in German, Russian, English, and French. And so these are not AI translations, but these are proper translations. We deal with geopolitical topics, so not only with Russia, but also Germany, China, the United States, BRICS, all those kinds of topics. And I usually go back into history. Whenever I once again find myself in a constant state of complete overwhelm, which is to say every single day, then looking back at history helps tremendously. What's happening today, somewhere, in a relationship that you can actually extract something meaningful from, because it's not just about diversity. The whole world is changing. It's not only about, it's not about the conflict about which now here everyone talks. I mean, regarding Russia, regarding the Ukraine conflict, things are really heating up, actually all over the world. And many things are happening, and they are happening very, very quickly.
Very, very fast.
And that means you can imagine something, you imagine something and say, okay, I view this matter, this situation this way and that way. And the next morning you get up, you have published something, and everything is completely different again.
Very exhausting. So when you give an answer today, sometimes you might already need to find a new one tomorrow.
Yes, that's like Adenauer, who said, "Why should I care about my nonsense from yesterday?"
But we don't have any reliability anymore, especially among Western countries. People say, well, how often has Mr. Trump, for example, switched sides, pro-Putin, pro-Zelensky? Now he is, I think, since last night.
Do you see it that way?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he plays or not, but it certainly doesn't make the whole situation easy to assess.
No, that's correct. But as a Swiss, you are actually neutral in all of this. It's apparent that the European Union is very eager to absorb Switzerland. Well, in my younger days, I always saw that Switzerland often acted as a mediator in many talks and negotiations. Do you still see Switzerland as neutral today as it has been in past years?
No, definitely not. So we gave up neutrality, and that was a process. It did not happen solely because of the conflict in Ukraine. That was a slow process of dismantling that began with Switzerland's membership in the United Nations.
This is actually what I struggle with the most when it comes to my homeland. We were considered hardworking, modest people who were effectively neutral.
When I was young, during the time of the Soviet Union, we were not big fans of the Soviet Union, but we respected it. We accepted our duty as a neutral country. People always think it is just a right. No, this is also an obligation, and it's the duty to keep quiet, even if someone has a different opinion.
And yes, you have to have the strength to, for example, stand up to the European Union and say, listen, we are neutral. You conduct your politics, we conduct ours. And we did very poorly in this conflict. The consequences are already there.
People meet in Riyadh, people meet in Istanbul, people meet everywhere except in Switzerland.
And the Swiss are not aware of how angry the Russians truly are. When you go into the details and listen to statements from Lavrov or Zakharova, it goes much further than with the Germans, who would just start spinning it into something else again.
That has always worked, but Switzerland, the behavior of Switzerland is considered disloyal from a Russian perspective because neutrality was not observed. And these are arguments that make sense, in my opinion.
But why do they believe that the Russians will manage to do this again with the Germans? If you see our government today, with what kind of vocabulary the government is also agitating against the Russian government. I mean the people. What I experience here in Russia, people are so warm-hearted. You are received so warmly here as a German. That actually doesn't match at all with the things the German government says to the Russians. And the mainstream media clearly contributes to making us hate the Russians. But they are such peaceful people, fundamentally. And what makes you think that things might actually come back together more quickly after all?
Yes, first of all, I am a long-term thinker. I think in decades. So there are the losers, the ones now in Berlin. Well, one group of losers has replaced the other. They are puppies. They have no idea about anything. Mr. Merz is a sold-out lackey. I don't even need to say it anymore. Everyone knows it.
And no, they will not. I mean, I wrote an article last week. They will not make it in any way. I say in the long run, the Germans and the Russians have always worked excellently together. And that is American foreign policy. They want to keep it undermined. You can read all about that in Brzezinski's works. They don't want Russia and the Germans to get along well because the complementarity of their skills is so brilliant. Then the Americans believe that they would lose their world power status. If Americans believe something, they believe it, whether it's true or not.
They are effectively losing world power due to BRICS. When you look at the BRICS countries and how China is replacing America, maybe America hasn't realized it yet, but if you go to China and see the innovation there, where streets are being built without people anymore, it's just incredible. I have seen it and it's unbelievable.
Yes, but ask an Englishman. They lost their world power 100 years ago and still act as if they're number one. And I found that interesting. I was in the United States in the summer and spoke with various former intelligence officers. I asked them, can you explain to me the role of the English?
This lousy little island with bad weather and everything, and they're still there. How do they do it? And they said yes. The Americans think very highly of ME6.
And started in 1953 with Ajax in Iran. And then the English came and said, okay, now I'll show you how it's done with our nice dirty work. And they had an influence that actually has nothing to do with England's geopolitical weight. So, respect after 100 years. And that is a good argument. It's the Americans' turn now to give up the scepter. And they don't realize that. No, they don't realize that. When speaking with Americans, not with the people we often talk to, but with average Americans, they don't see. They still believe the Americans are number one.
Yes, this is going to get bloody.
Yes, very sad. What surprises me, I see that in Germany, young people go to your country, to Switzerland. They say in Germany, no, I do not feel comfortable anymore there. They think they are not being taken seriously here anymore. Young people go to Switzerland, work there, even though it's more expensive, but they pay fewer taxes. You have to put that in perspective, and they feel really good in Switzerland. And unfortunately, very good young people who are well educated go abroad, which of course we miss, and it hurts a little when you feel like a German, that they see innovation and the future in another country rather than their own. Why does Switzerland have such a magnet?
That I always say the Heidi chocolate image, which is so positive among the Germans. The Germans consider the Swiss to be better than they really are. It's that Heidi chocolate thing. It has something positive, romantic. And the whole matter with taxes. So with taxes, it is like this, that the marginal tax rate in Switzerland starts much, much later. Yes. That means if you give away about half your earnings to the Social Security and such in the city of Zurich, then you really have to earn a lot more money than in Germany. But for the really high earners, I don't think there's a big difference. And there's also the wealth tax in most parts of Switzerland.
But you don't have inheritance tax?
We do not have an inheritance tax. This is regulated at the cantonal level. So, for example, in the canton of Zurich, there isn't one. Yes, that's correct. But now the leftists want to have inheritance tax. That would be 50% on wealth over 100 million. Yes, of course, the richer ladies and gentlemen in Switzerland are shocked. I don't think it will pass. That's the price you pay for direct democracy. So every fool can launch an initiative, and even the youngest people can do it.
And I think that's 100,000 signatures, and then people vote. So they have done this and caused a lot of commotion. And my closest friend is German, and now he is Swiss. He has been in Switzerland for so long. And he came, I don't know, maybe 24 or 23 years ago, he came to Switzerland. And back then, Switzerland really was objectively better in many ways. But that big lead we had in terms of quality of life, I'm not going to discuss individual things, money, or taxes now, but it was just genuinely cooler to live here in Switzerland. That's not the case anymore. So the differences are getting smaller, and the justification for why a pizza costs 23 or 24 Swiss francs and not 9.5 euros is becoming increasingly difficult to justify.
Yes, I know. Many Germans also want to go to university in Switzerland because it is well known, but that is not possible for a normal person. You have to perform well on the one hand and pass an entrance exam, but studying at good universities in Switzerland is already very expensive. But in Germany, of course, people know Beatrice Edley. She is so popular in Germany, you can't even imagine, even among young people.
Yes, I know. She is a singer, I think, right?
She won the first prize in Germany on a show by Dieter Bohlen. She sang Schlager, and at first everyone said this will never work, and she won the first prize, and she is also very popular with young people. And she can sing and speak in High German too. When she switches to Swiss German, it becomes harder to understand everything. But that's what makes Switzerland so charming. And music connects greatly even in geopolitics, I have to say. The people who sing together or make music together, and you are a good expert in geopolitics. Do you think music can help in politics before conferences take place? That perhaps people listen to music together to calm down a little from the aggression, to have a peaceful dialogue, or what do you think?
So well.
Well, I loved Russia when I was 6 years old. And at that age, you're naturally not interested in geopolitics, and you don't read Tolstoy. I received a music cassette from my grandmother who was in Russia. She traveled the whole world, and that had an extremely positive effect on me. It actually took away all the negativity, which is later implanted in us. It was implanted in us.
That never stood a chance with me because of the music. And obviously that would be a great idea with the music. But you see, because of the sanctions, concerts and lectures on Russian literature and Russian music were canceled. I mean, unbelievable. The level to which things sank was absolutely boundless.
If we want to listen to Beethoven in Moscow tonight, just give me 5 minutes and I'll look it up online, because the Russians would never stoop to that level. And yes, of course, that would be something positive, clearly. So cultural exchange always brings something.
I always see this with Valery Gergiev. He plays German composers a lot in Mariinsky Theater and also here in Moscow. And his friend Justus Franz, who comes from Germany, he is criticized in Germany because he gives concerts in Russia. All of it, music, the artists, even sports, is being pulled into politics and politicized. But what people really need to understand is that these things have nothing to do with politics. They're about humanity, about people coming together.
It is unbelievable what our politicians do.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Like, if the goal is hate, then you have to turn off the music. That's now, so it's not stupid. It's outrageous. It is outrageous, but, when you hear the music, I still remember, because my father, he was a real cold warrior. When I heard this music for the first time, he said, "Dirty communists," just like a reflex, right? It was in the 60s. And then I went to my grandmother and said, "How is it possible that such bad people make such beautiful music?" I was 6 years old, right? And she told me, when you look at things closely, everything looks different in the world. That had a big impact on me. And no, it works. And I was at an opera in Beijing last summer, and that's difficult. That's difficult to understand, so it doesn't sound nice to our ears. But Russian music sounds just as beautiful to the German or Swiss, the Western European ear, as Bach, Brahms, Mozart, and Beethoven sound wonderful to the Russians. Yes.
Also, Tchaikovsky.
Yes, that was always my first favorite, yes.
It's incredible when you experience it, whatever. Although I'd say in the Mariinsky Theater or also in the Bolshoi Theater, when you hear the music here, it somehow gives you a slightly nicer feeling.
Indeed. Because we are here, right? It's like Swiss chocolate in Switzerland.
Exactly. Yes, you are right. How do you see the geopolitical situation at the moment, which changes every day, right? What is happening, what is not?
They say that Ukraine is already divided.
They say that Trump and Putin have already agreed behind the scenes on who gets what resources, and the other one too. Is that decided between the two of them? Because the EU is completely divided. There is no single voice. They want to try to have a single voice, but it is not. Some want the Russian gas, others say never again. How anyone can even say something like never again, I don't understand that.
Yes, like no more war. We heard that too.
Yes. Yes, so that was the basic law of Germany, and also the European community was intended as a peace project.
It has now become an object of war.
This is now, yeah, that's the big question. I have before, I don't know, half a year ago, when I said the war of two worlds has already begun. So I think we have a war of the worlds. We don't have a world war.
That means there will, we have on one side, if I can briefly describe how I see it.
Yes.
I hope it will still be valid in 2 months. We have the collective West and the global South. So 10% of the world's population is the collective West versus 90% of the world's population in the global South. They've been telling them for 650 years where to go and how to stand to attention and how much they have to give. And we lived excellently. We lived excellently from the global South. And this is coming to an end. I think, well, Europe, I agree with you. They are not capable of pursuing a unified policy, but it was like that from the beginning. It should have remained an economic community.
Yeah.
So if a German, a French, a Spanish, and an Italian come together to agree against plurality, I mean, what did they drink before the meeting? So this means that Europe will have geopolitical and economic problems. It's not the Americans and not the Russians. The decision will be made by the Chinese, the Indians, the Iranians, everyone in BRICS will say something about it. And that's why the process will move slowly. And I think as it looks now, this whole issue with the Ukraine conflict, which I see as a piece in a very, very big system, it will be decided militarily, and that is indeed the case. I was extremely surprised how Kellogg, that is the second envoy next to Witkow, now said the Russians are getting hit hard and have over 1 million dead and so on. So every number and every statement he made is provably false.
May I say something in between?
Please, yes, interrupt me.
Otto von Bismarck once said, there is never so much lying as before an election, during a war, and after a hunt. And of course, there is lying during the war.
Yes, so we are still in the hunt, right?
Yes.
And I don't believe in this nuclear exchange. I somehow feel, I think in the end, they won't do it. Let's put it that way, without wanting to discuss any sides. And if that happens, I live a 25-minute walk from here. I walked here. And for me, it will be a matter of seconds, and then Peter Hanseler will be finished. I don't believe in it. And if humanity is searching for this path, then let it search. Here I am relatively relaxed and don't panic. Yes, if you know world history a little, somehow, they will already fight each other. Possibly for 30 or 50 years. But I don't think the great exchange will take place. I hope I'm right.
I think we all hope for that, especially when someone has children. And I have 4 children. I wish them exactly the same. What I have experienced for basically 80 years, I'm not quite that old yet, but we grew up in peace. Certainly with a few conflicts, also with the Soviet Union, but I also stood with torches at the death border and said, Russians, finally open this Iron Curtain. But and after this Iron Curtain fell, I had the Russians as friends. It's unbelievable how easy it was to get along with the Russian people. And I think it was more difficult to find a balance with the people from East Germany, because we in the West were very Americanized. And when I returned to the former East Germany 35 years ago, where our roots are, I had to first understand the mindset, which was very different, much more sensitive than in the West. And when you have had these 2 experiences, you notice what America has done with its power politics, and how then the GDR, even when you hear their national anthem, it could be completely German. This is not Soviet-oriented or communist-oriented. It's already a different feeling, and I have never perceived Russian people as aggressive. You have been living here in Russia for a long time now.
I have known Russia for 28 years, and I think, when people ask me, what are the 2 biggest advantages Russians have over us? First of all, they are skeptics. They believe nothing. So they watch our show and think, yeah, there are those 2 old guys. Knowledge is questioned. Everything is questioned. Even what one's own government says. This is very refreshing for a discussion in this country. You never offend anyone. You can discuss Stalin. You can meet people who have completely different opinions. This is thoroughly discussed.
One comes to a conclusion. The best remedy is to ensure that history does not repeat itself. That's the first point. The second point is that Russians can differentiate between politics and people. You will never meet a Russian who is angry with you because you are German, or because you are American, or because you are Swiss. That is absolutely out of the question.
Incredible.
And that has nothing to do with the elite and whatever. You can go out there in the mountains, hundreds of kilometers somewhere, and you're from Switzerland or whatever, or from Germany. They welcome you as a person and, yeah, they take you in. And the Russians are very warm people, very warm people.
That is incredible.
Well, I feel good here.
Yeah, Albin, you must have gained much deeper insights living here for such a long time, right?
Yeah, so the key is the language, and that's getting better now.
It's a big effort. I am not a linguist, and I am an old man, but at home only Russian, with friends only Russian, and with relatives also.
And then, yeah, it's a long way, but you notice how they play with language, with words, with things. The Russian language is much more complex and does this much more precisely than German. And once you've overcome the hurdles, the many hurdles, you really feel it. So it's really living here in terms of the atmosphere. It's hard to describe. Just amazing.
Yes, I experienced that from many Germans too who live here and whom I talk to. I experience myself. When I come back here again and again, I am always very warmly welcomed. That is exactly the opposite is propagated in Germany by the mainstream media. those are the bad people, and only we in the West are the good ones. And the question is, what is the actual goal? Do you want to provoke Russia? Are they really trying to use politics for all these statements we keep hearing in the EU against Russia? And they already need 19 sanction packages just to bring Russia to its knees, and still they can't manage it. Don't they realize they are tripping themselves up with this kind of approach?
Yes, definition of insanity according to Einstein. Now we have done it wrong, and we repeat it. Definition of madness, it is surely so. That is not a German goal. It is an Anglo-Saxon goal. It began in 1840 with the war, or 1860, excuse me. They wanted to weaken Russia because Russia is simply too big and too rich. And they want that. It's a century-long project. That's 180 years or 160 years. It will never stop. And the Germans are under the thumb of the Anglo-Saxons, and now they're just shouting Russia down. And the English will then find another fool. If they survive.
The English are the ones who want to push us to the front lines.
I can see.
Yes, that's also the case when you take a closer look at the First World War. Really study it a bit more closely, not just what is said today. It is actually unbelievable, and even after more than 120 years, the historical record is still incorrect. No, the English have had a big influence on Europe's view of Russia, a negative one.
It's incomprehensible to me. There are adults sitting there, even in the commission, also in the governments. They have some education.
And I know some of them personally.
I don't think so. I evaluate based on results.
Yes, okay. Yes, you're right about that. When you look at it in terms of results, you say they have no historical knowledge. No, they have no idea what's going on in the world. Well, our previous government always used to tell other countries how they should live, especially our foreign minister. And that has always been very arrogant, terrible. But that we are putting ourselves at the forefront in this conflict, that Merz says we have to be the largest military power in Europe again. Those are words that should send shivers down your spine when you hear something like that.
And is that also taken seriously by other European countries?
Yes. When you flip through the history books, what was said in the 20s and 30s didn't sound very intelligent either, so they are a bit too embarrassed about that. That's part of it. And I think, yes, Merz is now, of course, quite extreme, and he seems smarter than Mrs. Baerbock. That happened quickly, I agree with you. But he is, as we would say in Switzerland, not the brightest candle on the cake. He is overrated, and he is not credible because of his career at BlackRock.
Yes. Well, Donani, who was also with Helmut Schmidt and was mayor in Hamburg, who is now of an age where he can speak quite openly, also clearly says, we were never free. The United States always told us what to do.
Colony.
Yes, a colony of the United States of America. You can't really say that in Germany because we're supposed to be a free country.
But they had 90,000. Now there are maybe only 40,000 American soldiers. They are not free. They are a colony. Period. Done. You can't argue that away. Even a good German debater would struggle here.
Yes, I agree with you on that. Yes, it's a pity.
Do you see in any way, I mean, we see some countries like Slovakia or Hungary, even Italy, that want to go in a different direction in the EU and talk about diplomacy and dialogue. Do you see that this might inspire other countries a little so that a change can happen?
Yes, I am indeed expecting an economic collapse in the West. We already have it. Whether it begins in Japan or America or somewhere else doesn't really matter. The entire situation in the financial markets is extremely unstable, and it doesn't take much, especially the bond markets.
Now it's the French who are starting to waver. Then it'll be the Japanese, then the Americans again. Someone is going to kick it off, but it will be kicked off.
Do you think that...
And then the big question comes, will such a catastrophe politically weaken the European Union? This means Brussels will gain more power because they will somehow manage to put together a refinancing package.
that we Germans take on everyone's debts?
Yeah, somehow. Some messy backroom deal will be made and they say, these aren't even debts, this is special funding. You're out of touch, sir. Yeah, these are not debts. Special funding sounds like money, right? And I don't know what... I've been expecting this for a long time. But if it happens someday, whether they somehow manage to pull a new rabbit out of the hat and then continue to tighten the leash against the dissidents in the EU, whether this succeeds or whether it leads to a weakening of Brussels. And then what you described will happen, and what we all want, namely a more reasonable policy in the East. And I can't tell you for sure. I think those are the two possibilities.
Yes, I see a development in Germany looking at what is happening in France. It's slowly developing in Germany. People who wake up and say something is not right here either. We pay so much money for our energy at home. It is said that health insurance companies have to increase rates because we have no more money. Everywhere there are huge gaps, wealth gaps, and they no longer understand where all the money is supposed to come from to cover the household budget.
Our finance minister has just presented the budget 26 and has made it very clear how many billion will already be in deficit in these budgets in the coming years.
And people realize that actually, if the CDU calls, which has always pursued economic policy, and Merz used to speak very positively about the economy in the CDU. There's also this beer mat tax thing, 2 or 3 tax rates and done. And it was an incredible idea and people believed him at the time. Today, you can see that everything that was planned, everything people had hoped for and believed would lead to a positive development has turned into the exact opposite. Now, the population is being made to pay more and more. People in Germany are already talking about tax increases again.
People are waking up, and I noticed that the response from my conversations or via email or even by comment, that they say we need to rethink what is happening in Brussels because von der Leyen is not democratically elected. The parliament has no say. The parliament, it is noticeable at the moment that there is also resistance against this commission. I can't imagine that people will just watch and let it come to the point where the focus is suddenly on the EU and the Commission.
Do you really believe that? Look at the history books. The Germans are the world champions in driving against the wall with open eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that sounds a bit rude towards them. but I don't believe it either. I don't believe it. You look at the facts. That's what you also said. That's completely impossible for the people to go along with that, but they do it, and that's my fear. That is my fear. And this is, my grandparents came from Germany at the age of 23 after everything was lost. So I have a little bit of German.
In your blood?
In the blood, yes. But I don't understand how people accept that the party that would be the largest party today is effectively being criminalized. And we don't even need to talk about the reasons, but that this is even being done with state power.
With our tax money.
The judiciary, the executive and the legislative power are no longer separated. This is also a problem in Switzerland. And the federal chancellor has an approval rating of about 21%, meaning 80 are of a different opinion.
What else is needed to say, now it's over, we want new elections? Period. Then we won't go to work anymore. We won't pay value-added tax anymore. I would engage a passive resistance and just not give anything to the state anymore. I mean not setting buildings on fire or anything, but it's really about time that the Germans stand up.
Yes.
So because Mr. Merz's plans are so insane, I mean, he is heading towards a war with Russia. I mean, that would be the last one. You can assume that.
But that's complete madness. Apart from that, ask 100 Germans, can you come to the train station to sign up? We're marching against Moscow now, how that would go. So that's complete madness. But I am already surprised and actually think that not much more is happening in Germany. More needs to happen. People are scared. They're already scared.
Yeah. They're not afraid in that regard of Russia, but of course they...
Fear of their own state. They have fear of their own state.
Yeah, they fear that this war is coming, and there are only these words left in NATO. There are only these words now. And talk to Harald Kujat, who was the NATO general, the top boss, who knows all this. He says, don't we notice how our governments are lying to us? What's happening there? He knows all this. I had a long conversation with him, and I often get updates from him. He says it's madness what's going on here. And during his time, there were some tensions, but people talked. They were constantly speaking with each other, and they found solutions. Here, people no longer talk to each other to find solutions. Instead, they are fiercely opposing it. But I am still confident that people in Germany will no longer put up with this. And there is certainly perhaps that we have also married a bit more with the Europeans, that you also look at the other countries differently, look at them, and that they inspire each other. But we need the young people for this, because it is their future, after all. And I have to tell one thing again. A young person said on television, wrote a small book, and when asked, will you join the military if conscription is enforced? He said, I won't go there. Yes, but if you have to and so on, well, then I'll just register as a woman. And there you can see the schizophrenia that the laws have created.
Yeah, this is possible.
You are allowed to change your gender once a year.
Yes, that's where we are.
Yes, that's where we are. I don't believe it, but it's also a bit of hope. Well, I am like Köppel, who sometimes has a wishful thought, who also talks about it, and who often also traveled with Orban at the time to Zelensky and Putin. and also traveled to the Chinese president, that such initiatives that have been made were also labeled as something bad in the European Union.
This evil man sought dialogue and diplomacy. That's just not possible.
He has to keep up with Brussels, right? Left, 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 forward, march.
But I believe the EU has shot itself in the foot with unanimity, even when trying to bypass this unanimity. We have in our democracy, if you can still call it that, in Germany, there's actually no freedom of speech anymore, considering how many are isolated. You mentioned the largest opposition party is being pushed to the edge of criminality. Was people notice that? People notice that and feel with their common sense that it's different, and that whoever planned it, there's a strategy behind it. And we notice after so many years in Germany that we need, I believe, a change in party politics. The party ultimately decides everything. When you then say the party discipline must apply. Right? You are elected as an independent representative, but what the parliamentary group leader says has to happen unanimously. I think we need a reform of the parties to make it more open, and we don't need the second largest parliament in the world. That's madness, and no one can afford it anymore, right? The chancellery is now...
That will be special funds, no problem. Problem will be solved. Problem solved, yes.
But you certainly have also in economic policy where you feel at home, where you, how is it possible to act in economic policy in such a way and yet not achieve any value creation? And so it's only consumptive expenses that we're making. Nothing is coming back.
Yes, that has various reasons, of course. On one hand, it's because people don't understand the economy. So anyone who has ever been employed or self-employed as an entrepreneur, even as a small entrepreneur, knows the rules of the game relatively well. And then, of course, there's the fact that actually, since the closing of the gold window in 1971, you can simply print money. And that was 54 years ago. And Europe didn't come out of it so badly. If we have a problem, we just print money. At some point, we reach the end of the line. And so any business administration student at the end of the first semester, looking at Germany's numbers will say they're crazy. So that means it has other reasons. One believes in it, that they always say the next generation, we'll do it then, but today we'll give once more. Yes, it's like when you want to lose weight, the diet always starts tomorrow, right? Always starts tomorrow. And saving also always starts tomorrow. And that has, of course, worked relatively well with printing money. And now we have reached an important geopolitical point where it is really dangerous.
Yes.
And at the same time, we have reached a point in economic policy where the system of just continuously printing money and special funds is absolutely crazy idea.
Great idea.
Yes, that will be interesting. That
Soon we won't need to print money anymore. There's the digital euro, right? They are really pushing for it.
already 90% of the money we need is digital. And there it is about being able to control everything. Because what did you buy yesterday? That is not good for the German, for the interests of Germany. Law is what benefits the German people. And I'll be the one to decide that, right?
Yes, no, but do you see, you come from Switzerland, you also see from Switzerland these European countries that have made themselves dependent on each other, and now you live here in Russia. Do you see in any way a change that the world will start through the BRICS and that America will be also perhaps a bit friendlier towards China because they realize if they use another currency in the future and no longer the US dollar, that it spills over to the EU and to us in Europe?
Well, it keeps being problematic. I mean, I have my blog. I wrote the first blog post in November 2022, and I wrote about BRICS. I did not write about the Ukraine war. I wrote about BRICS because I believe that it is the organization that will become the most important for the whole world, and it is completely underestimated.
And they laugh about it.
No, we don't even write about it. When in the NZZ there's some snobbish, stupid chatter, you can forget all of it. You notice the people haven't engaged with the topic at all. No, we are being overtaken, that's quite clear. So technically speaking, people always think now in Germany, they blame the preceding governments for it. But the German industry has made huge mistakes. As always, they have completely underestimated the Chinese automotive industry.
Yes.
And 4 weeks ago, I heard an interview with the CEO of Ford Motor Companies. It was incredible. He said, forget it. We will never catch up again. We are defeated. The Chinese have beaten us. And yes, it is. People have the wrong impression. I always say, if you underestimate China, then go there for 3 weeks and travel through the country at 350 or 400 kilometers per hour. I did that last year. Then you can ask the question again, are they behind us? Or do we have a chance or whatever? And then after about 3 weeks, you've gathered enough impressions to understand that we have a problem.
Yes, we brought the Transrapid there, right? They developed it further at a speed we couldn't keep up with, and yet we still provide development aid to China. Just imagine that. Actually, we would need development aid from China. Unbelievable.
And that the Chinese can only copy is, of course, completely wrong.
But that is still a compliment to us.
No, but they can copy. You saw that with AI, artificial intelligence. You saw that they can make an equivalent system for a fraction of the cost.
Right.
Here in Moscow, you see many Chinese cars. I had the pleasure of sitting in one once. My mother-in-law just has that. Costs half of a Polo, and is better with 5 or 10 years warranty. It is a mockery. It's a mockery. So we really have to roll up our sleeves and get to work. That is what would be good for Germany. That is, a race is never lost because a race never ends, right?
That's true.
And yeah, then it's like 20, 30 years. And then, as a kind of quick fix, like thinking that we can achieve that through political means, that's completely impossible.
Yes, but don't you think that through the young people who have such a thing here, who are so connected worldwide, they have the next piece of information on the table within a few seconds about what is happening over there? We didn't have that in the past. They are internationally connected. They study in other countries and come together. They don't really know something like, oh God, that's a black person or that's a Chinese person, or young people are not interested in that they pass by this politics and say, let them do what they want. We'll do it differently anyway. That's the young people, no matter which country they come from, deal with each other very differently than those who are currently in politics and think they have to determine everything in detail, whether a war happens or whether taxes are raised or whether a special fund is created. Don't you think they handle it very differently?
Yes, well, one must, of course, make a big distinction here. I was in America. When you say, hey, we come from Russia and so on, that's never a problem. Never a problem. No matter if you're at the smallest. So we went, drove by car, from Washington to Miami. So even through the most rural areas, it was never a problem. And it is also the case now that we believe that the German people, they believe what is in the newspapers. So the media...
But not the young people. The young people don't believe it
anymore. That is extremely difficult to judge. I can't do that. You live there, I don't. You can judge it. You meet a lot of people. I'm a writer, I don't.
I meet a lot of young people.
Yes, very many young people. You can judge that much better than I can. But I believe that the mood is less anti-Russian in Germany among the young populations than what ARD and ZDF would have us believe. Can you agree with that?
Well, young people don't watch ZDF and ARD at all anymore. They have to pay for it when they have their own apartment, even though they don't watch it. It's unbelievable. I asked my children, what do you watch? They say, we watch TikTok. We also sometimes watch Instagram. We look at different channels. And what interests them, they also watch a lot on YouTube or on Telegram. And you notice ARD and ZDF television in this form, no one watches anymore. They either have a TV where they can show their own movies they want to watch via Netflix or wherever. But these young people simply don't want these news because they are all colored. So with already indirect comments, this evil Trump or this bloodthirsty Putin. So everything is already provided with adjectives. The young people don't want to hear that. They want to form their own opinion about these people and this politics.
Well, that's a positive conclusion.
Yes, I see that, so.
Because that is extremely difficult. You have to be in the country. I can tell you how the young Russians think. I can tell you how the young Swiss think. I talk a lot with my son.
Yes.
But I no longer live there. It's more difficult, even as a Swiss, to assess that. I ask people who live there. So possibly, if you look at what the media reports and say and what reality looks like, then I would not share your hope that things might get better in Germany faster than we believe, and hope.
I do believe that because you can see it in the development, it wasn't like that 1 or 2 years ago. Even though the policy of the traffic light coalition was rated negatively, people said, yes, it was noticed that there would be a change. And now many realize that there was no change at all, that a coalition was formed with a losing party. And the losing party determines what politics looks like, not the majority. People thought there would be a change in politics, but the young people say it hasn't happened. And the young people also say Trump said beforehand what he would do and does it when he comes to power. And in Germany, it was said that what the politicians said beforehand, exactly the opposite is done. It was about the debt break in the basic law.
That's absurd.
And that is indeed noted and is also passed on incredibly quickly through all channels.
I'm glad about that.
And that is a very important point. That's why, of course, Brussels also wants to control social media a bit more. They are already working on doing something again, fact-checking and so on. And who decides which facts are correct or not? But I am very optimistic because I meet with many students, with many pupils, with many young people on the street. I interact with them a lot, and I always ask them, I always like to listen to what they want. And it's incredible that they have different ideas than the older ones. And I think that's good. After all, it's their life. And that they no longer let the politicians, yes, there has to be something up there making decisions, but not that anymore. And they are much faster. It goes much faster with the media also to say, okay, let's change that overnight. And many young people who are in the IT sector, they set an example for many also in politics. The youngest member of the European Parliament. Do you know how he came there? He is from Cyprus, by the way. He said, I have hundreds of thousands of followers here, and they all voted for me. I was the only one who got into parliament. He is 27, and a very young person, never had anything to do with politics before. He was here in Russia with 5 members of the European Parliament, and he talks to his followers and says, I have to tell them what I do and what results I bring, because otherwise I am not the right man for them. I thought that was really great.
Absolutely fantastic.
I found that really great, and I saw that things can change very quickly, and some politicians need to brace themselves as they might be out of the picture tomorrow and no longer have this comfort with office cars. Still, that's the hope as well. Do you see that a little bit also when you talk to your son?
Well, you are an incredible optimist. Take that as a compliment, please. We need people who are optimistic. I am basically actually too, but the reality has already brought me down to earth. And the reality is so connected with the history. So that means the danger of repetition, especially in the relationship between Germany and Russia. That already makes me afraid. Afraid is the wrong word. If you are on the Russian side.
That worries you.
Yes, but it worries me. And now the question is, I am a lawyer, and I always speak about disobedience because, yes, deep down I am an anarchist. I am Swiss, so one should be a bit of an anarchist with the authorities. Legally speaking, they have to put up with this guy until new elections. And the question is whether the young people can say, no, we won't go along with that. And what you just said earlier actually makes me feel positive. That I might be viewing the situation too negatively in Germany, that a change, a relatively clear and quick change, is possible. I would be the happiest person.
Whether all of this will get better? Well, you don't know.
Well, the question is always, can it get any worse?
Yes.
Because, you know, the last government, people said Baerbock, and these clowns, it doesn't really matter. It can't get worse. And it got worse. Well, it didn't get worse in terms of management. It got worse in terms of risk analysis.
Yes.
It became more dangerous.
Yes, the polls show it. So they wanted a turnaround by the middle of the year before the holidays, which they didn't get. They had a positive mood that it will continue positively, but the exact opposite happened. that also greatly worries the CDU members. No question about it. Many CDU members are leaving the party. And you notice that something is not quite right anymore. And one must say the SPD actually sets the pace. You saw it with the constitutional judges. It wasn't so clear to me. To others, I knew that before, but it wasn't so noticeable. The election of constitutional judges by the parties, it is indeed party politics being conducted there.
That's not possible,
That's
right?
not acceptable. I need independent people there and not party political people in a constitutional court which reviews things. If it's purely party political, then I might as well just fill all the positions.
We have the same problem in Switzerland, by the way, so...
Yes, I had heard that too.
What would you famous ancestor, the great Otto von Bismarck, what would he say if he saw this? Have you thought about it? What would he, if he now watched the news, the whole thing, what would he say to that?
Also, I have now read twice and 3 times as much, and you find a lot of quotes that have been almost like a guideline, a guiding principle in politics. And there is also a quote, whoever wants eternal peace must also consider the interests of others. That means speak on equal terms with the other side. Just like a supplier and a customer, yes, must be on equal terms. If they want to work together and if they want to agree on a price and how the delivery works, here it is about states and it is always about interests.
That is probably so, but if that had been followed, then the war would not have come at all.
That's how it is. Realpolitik, we now have moral politics. We no longer have realpolitik that sees this in the EU. They moralize and want to bring people along through morality and say, oh, that's not possible. We can't deliver apples to the Russians anymore. We have to force them to their knees now because there is such a terrible war, and to stop it, we won't deliver apples anymore. And again, one must imagine these moral issues that concern people. Western politicians do not understand that the Russian people have a different mindset. When they themselves are affected, that they do not rebel against their government, but rather that it is more of a greater unification, a greater shared suffering. And they say, we can endure this, what others want to do with us. Because that's how it is. You don't get that anymore. You don't get cheese anymore. And you don't get tomatoes from Holland anymore. And you don't get that anymore. And also no Mercedes and no BMW and so on. And when I walk down the streets here, everyone laughs because everything is available here. All the Western brands are here in all the department stores, in all the shops. We are being told that because of the sanctions, none of this is available anymore. And they believe that nowadays one cannot find the detours, that everything ends up here and here. You know that better than I do. You see daily on the streets what cars are driving here. Not only Chinese cars, also Chinese ones, but everything else is still there. New vehicles.
Right, you get everything here. If you want to get a new Maybach, in 2 weeks you will get it.
And we are told we are isolating Russia, but the exact opposite has been achieved.
Yes, that is always the question of words. I mean, the NZZ wrote in December 2022 that Russia is completely isolated. No. They belong to the global south. They all stand together. That's 90%. And the 10% of the global west are actually isolated. So isolation, I would always define that as communication problems. Communication within the global south works perfectly. And I mean, if Trump achieved one thing, it is to weld the Chinese together with the Indians in somehow 11 and a half days, right? It's absurd.
Unbelievable.
When I used to talk about BRICS, we always said, yes, the Indians, yes, they just do business with everyone. It's a mentality thing. You have to accept it. But that is the biggest source of uncertainty within BRICS. And that issue is settled in favor of BRICS.
Yes, of course.
Well, that's the erratic behavior of Trump. I always struggle when it comes to the conclusion that the other person is a complete idiot. If that's the solution to our conversation, the other person is a complete idiot. That's always dangerous. I don't think he's an idiot. He is completely intuitive and not at all intellectual. And he does, when you look at it, everything has become unclear. You could also say, well, actually, it has also brought clarity.
Yes.
I must say that Mr. Trump's whack-a-mole style of politics, where he just bashes in without hesitation, actually works really well in the global South. Let's take Mrs. von der Leyen, the 15% tariffs, and then what are $600 billion for weapons and $750 billion for energy? Well, that's a great deal. So they caved in, the Swiss caved in, everyone caved in. The biggest positive thing was with regard to Brazil, what is it, 150%? That is absolutely ridiculous. The Chinese, the Indians, and the Russians said, hold on, we are here, we have your back. So it was discovered that Mr. Trump knows how to kick people in the back. That works excellently in the West and not at all in the global South.
No.
Well, we also got clarity.
Yes. That is a clarity of politics. You know where you stand initially. But that's why I also don't believe that all the statements he makes are 100% what he wants. He wants to provoke and bring people together, also to see the reaction, what comes and where things go. And he is advocating for his country. That must be clearly stated. Whether everything turns out positively in the end is another question. The development will show that. But initially, billions of dollars have already flowed back into his country, and he can pat himself on the back for bringing a lot of money back to America.
He definitely does that, yes.
At least in the form of weapons production, he made and accomplished a huge deal. But once more, at the end of our conversation, I think it's good, as you said, you are actually positive too. I believe we also have the responsibility as parents to tell young people you can change something. You don't have to be followers. You can make a change by teaming up with your friends, deciding how you want to live, no matter how and where. You can change it. I believe so, and I have also told many young people in my podcast, go to your local politicians, talk to them and ask, why are you doing it this way?
Why don't you do it differently? And why do you allow this?
The more people across the country go to their own representatives in their constituencies, the more change can be made within the parliamentary faction. That's a major key. You wouldn't think so, because when you keep hearing that as a member of parliament, and then someone in the parliamentary group says, but I hear something completely different out there. I do believe that there is a small starting point there. The bigger one certainly lies elsewhere, but I also hope that many will make use of it. It's one of those moments where you say, well, they have to stand up, not just keep demonstrating, but they need to stand up and speak out.
A nice closing word. I can't do it better. Please, no closing question.
Mr. Hanseler, I think it's great that you're doing this, and you must mention your forum again.
Yes, so forumgeopolitica.com, that is our webpage. All our articles, or 99% of our articles, appear in all 4 languages simultaneously. That is German, Russian, English, and French. We have many German authors. We have Bittner with us. We have Pullman with us. We have Patrick Bob with us. We have many great authors from Germany, from America, from Switzerland, from Russia, from France. And what unites us is the search for truth. Truth itself may not exist, but at least the search for it does.
I think that's really great. We Germans look a bit enviously at Switzerland and also positively. You hear that from many people, and that's why many would like to go to Switzerland and leave Germany. I hope they come back someday and help Germany get back on track a little. Thank you for being here, especially for offering it from a different perspective, not a German or Russian one, but from a completely different perspective from neutral Switzerland. I'm emphasizing that again.
Yeah, as a parting shot.
I truly hope it stays this way in the future, and I also think it's wonderful that we were able to do this here under glorious sunshine in front of Red Square and the Kremlin. Yes, dear viewers, I hope you found it interesting to be with us, and I look forward to having you join us again next time for another edition of Alexander von Bismarck in Dialogue.